You'd think with all the love and care that goes into the creation of most video games, we as players would just sit back and enjoy these tailor-made experiences. Then again, it is pretty fun to try and push the boundaries and see what exploits we can find when we can find them. This joy is only doubled when we learn that not only has a game intentionally or unintentionally left an exploit or breakable option available to us, the developers also knew you were going to try and use it. Whether to chide you for cheating or grant you an Easter egg, in each of these games the creators just knew you'd try to weasel out of playing their video games in a traditional way, and decided to make sure you knew they knew that you'd stepped out of line. Even though most of these games seem to be having a go at you, there's certainly something to be said for the developers thinking it's entertaining enough that you did it that they decided to design you a little bit of an Easter egg, and clever for you to have found the exploit in the first place. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 video games that knew you'd try to break them. Number 10. Guessing the Door Code. South Park: The Fractured But Whole. Early on in The Fractured But Whole, the weirdly impressive sequel to the equally impressive Stick of Truth, you have to try to get into Cartman's basement using a door code. The code of the door can be found in a diary in his room, but you can pretty easily break the puzzle by either following a guide online or knowing the show well enough to guess that the 3-digit code is probably "F you mom." Each number has a word on it, including you, poop, and my, and while plenty of classic Cartman phrases can be replicated with the numpad, the classic 3-word insult frequently levied at his single parent makes the most sense. Enter the correct code without checking the diary first, however, and Cartman pops up on screen dressed as Bill Belichick, calling you Tom Brady and asking if you want to play the game properly or just be known as a, quote, smug cheating bitch for the rest of your life. He'll then refuse to open the door and consistently call you Tom Brady, saying you broke the rules, and the only way to actually get through the door is to do it properly, find the diary, find the code, and then you'll be allowed through. Number 9. The Serious Room. The Stanley Parable. It's curious when a game lets you enter a cheat code and then punishes you for it, but in this case, and plenty of other entries on this list, the results are so entertaining, we're not entirely sure they're punishments at all. Attempt to enable server cheats in the Stanley Parable, for instance, and you'll be sent to the Serious Room for a stern talking to. The narrator tells you that you've been taken to the Serious Room with the most serious table he could find, so that you could fully understand the implications and disrespect of enabling server cheats. If you try to enable the cheats again once in the Serious Room, the narrator is shocked and again tells you how awful cheating is and how many tables he looked at to ensure the severity of your issues were properly conveyed. You're condemned to infinity years in the Serious Room, and indeed there is no way out unless you quit the game or restart. This is actually the only way to achieve the serious ending, so if you're playing this game trying to see all the endings, this is probably a good thing, so long as you can handle a good telling off. Number 8. Time Travel Rumors. Animal Crossing: New Horizons. It's fairly well known that Animal Crossing games are highly affected by time travel, where you can either massively aid or massively mess up your game depending on how you manage the feature. While Nintendo might not love you changing your system clock to speed up time or redo a day in Animal Crossing, they've accepted it's inevitable at this point. But that doesn't stop your villagers from cottoning on to something odd being afoot. Apart from needing to worry about your turnips soiling, weeds developing, or villagers moving away if they feel neglected, you'll also need to bear the brunt of some rampant and totally substantiated rumors. Said rumors will have your villagers coming up to you accusing you of being a time traveler, but not to worry, if you don't like being outed as Doctor Who, you can just get super into clothes or something and then they'll be back to calling you a fashionista. Go ahead and set your Switch clock to whatever works best for your game. Just know that your furry Animal Crossing buds are fully aware of it, which is a bit creepy now that I put it like that. Number 7. Suspicious Funds. Papers, Please. Many games let you hold gold, money, or credits like some kind of dragon in a lair, but Papers, Please is not one of those games. In fact, it's one of those games where having a bunch of money is super sus. The thematically and mechanically brutal game where you play as an immigration officer juggling moral quandaries while trying to feed your family is objectively fantastic, but only fun for a very specific kind of gamer. Since the game is so frequently sad, you might feel compelled to give yourself some extra funds using Cheat Engine, but like so many decisions in and around this game, that's a choice you'd regret very quickly. If you rock up at home with more money than you should have, you'll get a pop-up saying, "The Ministry of Income has discovered an anomaly in your earnings." At this point, you'll be promptly arrested pending a full audit and hurried into a game over screen. Glory to our Stotska. Number 6. Don't Steal. Zelda: Link's Awakening. The problem with cool loot and items in video games is that, by and large, they're gonna cost you quite a few simoleons, gold pieces, gil, or in this case, rupees. That's all fine unless your pockets are a little light, and then some casual kleptomania is starting to sound like a good way to go. If you decide to break bad in Luke's awakening though, you're in for a rude, awakening. In the town tool shop, you can pinch an object, then orientate the shopkeeper to the wall opposite the doorway, after which you have a tiny window of time to hightail it out of there to obtain your loot for the extraordinarily low price of free. The game will let you know you got the item for free and ask if you're proud of yourself, but then things go extra sideways. Return to the scene of the crime and the shopkeeper will one-shot you for your crimes, you dirty thief. Not only that, but every single NPC in the game will not call you by your name anymore, but simply by thief. Not a forgiving people, these Hyruleans. Number 5, a bad treasure hunt. Prey 2017. There's an optional objective in Prey where you're called upon to complete a treasure hunt orchestrated by lead sanitation engineer and tabletop game enthusiast Abigail Foy. The reward for said treasure hunt is a suit chipset, which you can access by entering a 4-digit code into Abby's computer. Since you have access to the computer from the beginning, you might decide you can't be bothered to run around finding all the map bits and just look up the correct code. As you would have guessed this far into this particular list of entries, that'd be a mistake. Enter the correct code without the runaround and you'll be penalized with an alternate suit chipset called Game Master's Aya version 1.x fabrication plan. Instead of the bonuses you should have received, like increasing recycler yield, critical hit chance with your wrench, a more efficient flashlight, and speedier movement speed when crouched, this crappy chipset will do the exact opposite of all those things. To add insult to injury, there's no way to just tuck your tail between your legs and decide to go do the side mission properly once you've messed it up. If you cheated, you just cheated and you have to sit with your crappy chipset, or load a save. Number 4, how do you get here? Fallout 3. This one's an oldie but a goodie. There's a guard called Stockholm standing above the entrance to Megaton, and no discernible way to actually reach him. But where there's a horde of gamers and a seemingly impossible objective, somebody will be determined enough to figure it out. And that's exactly what happened. By using mods like an anti-gravity mod or a very specific set of clipping into buildings and jumps, you can actually reach the guy atop the gate. Instead of just standing there and marveling at your ability to stand slightly higher than you previously had been, Bethesda actually programmed dialogue for the guard, chiding you for wasting his time, then asking the player how on earth they managed to get up there in the first place. Number 3, ratted out by the PA, Theme Hospital. Games having a go at you for trying to break them is a tale as old as video games, and whether we're talking Prey in 2017 or 20 years earlier when EA set Theme Hospital loose on the scene, you were going to get an earful for trying to worm your way out of playing properly. The hospital sim had you trying to successfully run a hospital, preferably without the use of cheats, but did you decide to use tweets, every person in the vicinity would be alerted to your shenanigans. Should you try to enter a cheat code, an announcement will come over the hospital PA system telling everyone and their mother that you're a rotten cheater. They'll call out, "Warning, a cheat is running the hospital," and you'll have nowhere to hide your shame but in your piles of success and money, or whatever it was you were cheating for. I'll let you decide if that was worth it, but I'm guessing it probably was. Number 2, you're playing wrong. Vampire the Masquerade. There are few genres as open to being broken as RPGs, and Vampire the Masquerade is a great example. Some clever players found an exploit where jumping back and forth to alter your history in the character creation screen after assigning points would add on a whole new pile of points. You could repeat this process until you had the maximum stats, then boot the game as an unstoppable vampire menace. You will cop some sass from Smiling Jack, who will point out you're clearly using cheats, and you can either say sorry to him and that you'll start a new character, or just explain you're using a mod and he'll just leave you to it. Props to the developers for giving you the option there, as if you want to just head out into the game world with your little OP creature of the night, you're allowed to do just that, with minimal sass here on out. Number 1, Dirty Hacker, Undertale. There are many ways to play indie darling Undertale, most of which won't result in the game figuratively rapping you on the nose with a newspaper like you've been a bad dog. The Dirty Hacker ending, though, definitely will. The only way to end up with this particular ending is to mess with the game's files. This is pretty impossible to do accidentally, as you'll need a proper program to access the game's code, or set two contradictory values and confound the game. Either way, Undertale mastermind Toby Fox saw you coming and implemented this ending just for you. You get a phone call from Sans who tells you he doesn't know how you managed to get there and he's delivering an error handling message. He then tells you to let the game creator know what went wrong, with the caveat that chances are you're just a dirty hacker, and tells you to get out of there. That's the end of our list, but let me know down in that comment section if you can think of any other video games that knew you would try to break them. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm at Jess McDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more gaming goodness.